One area of saving and investment that I think the government really needs to look at is pensions. And they are already starting to do that and looking at pension reform. But I think we really need to be really radical here. We need to increase people's engagement with their pension pots and with what those pension pots are invested in. We've seen a real shift in the last 10 or 20 years in the UK from defined benefit schemes to defined contribution schemes. And what that's done is effectively shift the risk associated with both the accumulation of assets and the performance of those investments from the company that you're employed by or the state onto the individual. And in reality, a defined contribution pension is not a pension. It's not going to provide you with a certain income in retirement in the same way that a defined benefit scheme will. And as a consequence of that, we really need to rename this. Ultimately, we've seen that shift from defined benefit to defined contribution without explaining to people that shift in risk and where the risk sits. And we've continued to use the same language around pensions throughout. Ultimately, we need to change this, and we need to get people to recognise that their defined contribution pension is not a pension. It's a lifetime savings pot. And because it's a lifetime savings pot, it needs to be nurtured. It needs to be engaged with. You have to understand whether or not you're contributing enough, what it's likely to deliver to you as a pot of capital when you retire, and then how you're going to use that to drive your retirement income and your financial future. Because we don't have that level of engagement that you see in other countries like Australia or America, where they have superannuation schemes or 401ks respectively, because we don't have that level of engagement and so many people just tick the default box, which basically puts their investments into a low-cost global equities tracker, with most of that investment flowing into overseas equities. We have less investment within our pension schemes within the UK market. We have less investment within our pension schemes within smaller startup businesses. And we have that lower level of engagement and, as a result, lower returns and lower savings rates. We need to change this dynamic and we need to get people to engage more. And I think one of the fundamental things, and it might sound relatively simple, but I think it would be really quite radical and fundamental, is to change the name of the pension and get away from using that language and encourage government and others to understand that fundamentally this is a lifetime savings pot that people need to engage with, need to contribute more to, and need to be paying more attention into what it's invested in and taking at greater interest. Increasing that level of engagement will see an increase in contribution levels, see an increase in domestic investment, and see an increase in investment in newer startup businesses, I'm sure. That's certainly been the experience elsewhere. And it's something the government could do with relative ease and would signal a real change in mindset around pension savings in this country.